he is. Where the heck have you been, dude? Just kidding.
What do you call it? They come to snuff the rooster.
Can I quote you?
Sure, definitely. Please do. Let me put this bird back in the cage real quick here. I didn't realize we were.
You are the rooster. Is that?
Yes.
Is that,
there you go.
And this is your waddle. Wait,
I haven't got there yet. No,
that's the waddle is down here. Yeah, that's right.
Remember that? Remember Ally McBeal? That show that came on. Remember that? That show from way back, Ally McBeal, and it was she was a lawyer, and it was a bunch of high rate attorneys, and they all kind of had this like Shark Tank thing. And the one lawyer was into older women, and he was dating the judge, and he loved her so much because of her waddle. Remember that episode?
Yeah, and the dancing baby. I couldn't watch that thing.
That was weird.
I could not watch that show.
What was up with that?
Totally weird.
That was her
biological. To them, it was like. Well, yeah, it was cutting edge CGI at the time. Like everybody thought that was like, oh, this is amazing. It's groundbreaking. And it's like so cringe. Even for me, it was so cringe at the time. What? Oh, come on. And I just never became a fan of the show because of that. All right. So just for clarification for the fans out there, because they're populating in here, Carrie Jumper's in here, Jacqueline Edwards is Lost in Time Industries, people popping in. Everybody loves you, William. And you abandoned me. You abandoned me last Friday. What the heck? You left me in the lurch.
Oh, man. So, like, you should spend the day at the shop and customers that come in and, like, I'm trying, like, so I scheduled a brake job. So I was like, okay, you can wait on it. We'll knock it out real quick. Well, we're doing the brakes. They send me the wrong stuff. Customers standing there. I'm trying to hurry up and get it done. I'm like, oh, gosh. And I couldn't stop long enough to get in the chat to tell you what was going on. And so, being self-employed and running this stuff all by yourself is definitely an adventure that I would never take for granted, and I love it, but it does come with its own double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, it's actually a huge blessing to be your own boss, but that means prioritizing, right? You got to prioritize work, and I get it. So things come up, and I knew, I assumed, I no hard feelings at all. It was, I can handle it. Half an hour, I can do half an hour, no problem. I just enjoy listening to you. So I was missing you. And so here you are, you're back.
We're back.
All right. Let's, I'm going to turn it over to you. I was a little confused about something. Gina was talking about a video, and I thought she was talking about a video for this session, but it was Bible every morning. Never mind. Yeah. Never mind. It was something else.
He's in your earpiece. So we've got this whole elephant in the room called Wow, Banana Republic 101. This is how you get there. Am I not? Are we on to something with that? Because, dude, you want to talk about, like, we knew this was coming. Everybody knew this was coming. They knew that, and I watched Steve Turley talk about it and some other people, and Tucker Carlson's awesome episode last night on Twitter, episode number 3. This morning I got up and it was almost. Now, here's the thing that our side does that needs not happen. They'll look at the little number on the right, like, whoa, 38 million views, and go bonkers over that. No. It's 8.9, almost 9 million this morning, which is excellent numbers. So, but don't hype the numbers up because they're so good now. We don't need to have somebody on the right or the left side going, hey, look at them hyping these numbers up. These are just people that saw the feed. They didn't actually watch it. And I guarantee you now it's at 10 million, because I woke up this morning and seen where it was at. It was at 3.8 million last night at 11 o'clock, hitting almost 10 million now. And that means with that many people, he's reaching both sides. We're talking about Tucker Carlson. Both sides of the aisle are seeing this.
Oh, yeah. And it's, probably more than would have watched Fox News, right? I never watched. I always went to YouTube to watch, right? Those channels that rip the shows off and post them as quickly as they can, right? The popular shows. There's just a million channels out there that are grabbing news from different networks and stuff. And so that's when I would catch Tucker, and so when he was removed, left, when he was no longer on Fox, it kind of opened up a window in my schedule that I filled with, like, sermons, like listening to the Word of God and stuff like that. But I'm glad he's back, because he's basically doing his opening monologue. Like, he's not doing a full show yet. And I think that's the plan, is to do a full show. But his opening monologue was always the most hard hitting, the most that's the stuff that he spent his day putting together, and then he'll have guests on, and they'll go back and forth on topics. But he's not at the guest point yet where he fills out the full hour. But man, it's just so nice that he. I know he always said for a long time he was never told by his superiors at Fox what to say. He was never told what he could and couldn't say, and I think that changed within the last year. I think
Yeah, like the last 3 months.
and, and so now he's completely unfettered, right? Elon Musk is never going to say, Tucker, don't talk about that. He doesn't have a boss anymore, right? He doesn't have anybody over him. And so you're getting the unvarnished Tucker, and it's refreshing. And Fox has issued him a cease and desist letter, right?
Yeah, you can't stop a man from posting on social media. You can't do that. It's, and see, the thing is he can do all these as long as he's not making money off of it. Then he's not a so-called a commentary or a broadcaster that would violate his contract. Yeah, and so because right now they're still paying him to not be there, so he's got money coming in. All I got to do now is just like get on here, and I'm bored all day, riding my golf cart and going fishing and all. Get out here and blast some news real quick, and there's absolutely nothing in his contract that says I would imagine at the time when they wrote the contract out, Twitter was sort of like this little thing that was played in the back that wasn't doing a whole lot. So when the contract was wrote out and renewed, these people forgot all about that. They was like. Then they were like, when they did that, they were like, did you put that in the contract? Well, no. They were like, crap, cease and desist, because nobody didn't think about it. This is the one that's like a loophole. Thank goodness it was there.
Well, I don't even know that. I mean, I haven't seen his contract, so I don't know that. But I mean, I've had the same kind of thought process that you're talking about. But even if there is some kind of ironclad clause, right? Even if they did include something that this falls under, doesn't matter. The guy is not. They can't put him in jail, right, for violating that clause. Right? If it exists, they can't put him in jail for that, and he's never going to have to worry about money, right? That's the only threat. Like the only threat they have is we're going to sue the pants off you for $1 billion. Elon Musk will be like, don't worry about Tucker. I got you covered. It's like Tucker has so many friends. He's got so many people on his side. He's never, ever going to have to worry about money, right? To
not worry about money is a freedom in itself. Even if you've got a lot of it, there's so many people that's what they're. If that number changes a little bit from their huge, that it's the end of the world. And you've got to go into this mindset to have, you can lose all this stuff. You need to, we don't want to, but if you're going to really put this out there, you can be ready to make a few sacrifices. It could come to me. Could you imagine me and my business and something happening, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because that's what they count on. They bank on us being scared and going, we'll cowtail him. And, if, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I've been called to do. I don't know where the voice came from. I do know where the voice came from. Anyhow, so, but what we're looking at now, thank goodness for Tucker Carlson, what he's doing is with Trump. Do you think that a lot of this stuff is happening, something that happened circa 7.5, almost 8 years ago, when he looked over at Jeb Bush and I think Hillary Clinton was standing there too when he called them all liars about the weapons of mass destruction and how they destabilized the Middle East and how we never should have been in there, and it left everybody in the crowd dumbfounded because they were like, everybody at that point in time when he announced that on that debate stage, everybody was coming to terms with that at that point in time. So it was the perfect time to announce it and gave them zero time to have anything to say about it because nobody ever went there in a presidential debate because you're all in the establishment. You don't talk about that, but he did. And that might have been, when you mess with the military industrial complex, you're messing with the pockets of all these corrupt politicians and generals as well that skim all the money off the top. So what do you think? Possible?
Well, that was the core, like the bottom line point that Tucker made last night was the moment Trump was on their radar, like was their number one target when in that primary or whatever it was, that debate, when he said, got distracted by that. When he said that there were never weapons of mass destruction and they knew it.
And they
right?
knew
And
it.
they always knew it. That's what Tucker's point was. That his main point was when Trump said that, he's the only one to ever say that, the only one bold enough to say that. And when he crossed that, that was the line. That was when he crossed the line, that he made enemies and they targeted him, because that is the human institution that thinks they're in charge of the world. Right, the
Yeah.
U.S. military-industrial complex. Right, it's the BlackRock, and those who develop and sell munitions, right? The weaponry. Like, this is a money-making venture, and we make money when people use our product. The thing that we create gets used, and when does it get used? In war, right? And so he was going straight at the hubris of that institution, and he's the only one. And he went, and then he won. And they were like,
Yeah.
"What?" They couldn't believe that they couldn't control the narrative, and it was that razor thin margin that he won by. And so now they're looking at it's this, you know what the Chinese finger trap is? You know
Of
what those
course. I get
those
my
are?
fingers in them all the time. It's just something else. I think about it.
Donald Trump is the Chinese finger trap of the elites, right?
Yeah.
They try and they try and extract him, and they target him, and they pull on him, and they pull on him, and they pull and pull and pull, and they indict him
They're hung up
federally
in it.
now.
And they
They,
can't get
they
out of
pull,
it.
and what happens is it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and his numbers go up and up and up, and the separation from the rest of the pack. And so it's like he is the number one target or threat to that cabal, that group that think they're in control of the world. I just want to but I want to make sure we all understand whether Trump wins or loses in 2024, right? So he would win if everything, and Tucker makes this point, and he made this point during the midterms talking about Kari Lake. He says, all things being equal, if everything is above board, she's going to be the next governor of Arizona, right? And that's Tucker from the inside of the Beltway, within the know. And so we saw what happened. It was this razor thin margin. Somehow everything goes wrong in the process of the midterms. And so if the same kind of thing happens again that we all suspect happened in 2020, and whoever is the Democrat that goes against him is installed for another 4 years, keep in mind, God is actually in control, right? It'll be heart-wrenching if that happens. All signs point to Trump being president again, right? And
they did in Brazil too with Bolsonaro. Remember how that went down?
Yep, okay. Exactly. So if I remember when Trump first declared running for office, and I was with some friends, some very liberal friends. It was a Christmas party, and I made this statement, and they all agreed to it, and I believe it was true at the time, and maybe it was true or maybe it wasn't, but I think it was. I think Trump, when he decided to run, he could have picked either side. He could have said, "I'm going to go run as a Democrat. I'm going to run as a Republican." Right? Because he's currently to the left of Bill Clinton, right? Like Bill, in some things, in some policies, right? Bill Clinton was more conservative than some of Trump's platform. And so technically he could have, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go run as a Democrat, or I'm going to run as a Republican." And I don't know that he ever had that thought process, which one, but technically he could have, and he would have won, probably either one. And so, in other words, he's an enemy of both sides, right? He's an enemy to both sides. He undermines both sides. And so he's going again. He's got not just all the Dems, but, as we know, the rhinos, the GOP establishment. And they're doing all they can to fund DeSantis, and God bless DeSantis. I mean, I don't know anything about DeSantis, but man, was the thing. Okay, I'm kind of rambling here, but
so check this out. On that thought of Trump being a threat to both sides, imagine a man that could destabilize the plan for, like, say, for instance, if you're given I'll pay you this much money to complete this job. So you've got politicians and lobbyists out there that have a certain end game they need to achieve to get a certain payment. And you need, and I'm going with the globalists, that went in there and said, okay, this is what we want to do with America. This is how we want to transform things. Now, if you can put your political backing and yourself into that, you're going to make some good money. And a man comes in there and destabilizes that, and that's messing with these people's money and these people's power. And a lot of the things that they did to lead up to, some of it wasn't ethical and or legal. And so if something happens, that could come back on them. And that would be on both ends. Like you said earlier, he's a threat to both, because the people love him and he's great for the economy. And the Democrats don't want that. And Rhino Republicans with an agenda on mine don't want that. And if he energized, imagine how energized we would be without all the demoralization campaigns. Let's say if Trump was allowed to have his presidency without any restrictions, just your normal political stuff that happens, you're getting his stuff done, how much more we would have been more involved. Americans wouldn't be so demoralized, and how much more powerful and united we would be under the circumstances. And think about all the times that the fake media went in there and said all this bad stuff about him when he's gave more money to any of the black colleges. I've seen pictures of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton both shaking Trump's hand because Trump's paid off a dude's house that worked for him because his wife got cancer. He didn't want him to have to worry about paying his house payment, paid off like $100,000 on his mortgage. And the media never actually focuses on any of that. And if Biden done any of that, half of that, a quarter of that, an eighth of that, a 64th of that, the media would be all over. There's nothing that the Bidens have done that the media can bring to the table and say, this is what Joe Biden has done for somebody. He paid off this dude's house. This is what such and none of that. Hunter Biden helped a bunch of kids. Other than touching. None of that. Right. Nothing positive has ever been reported, because if there was, trust me, because they want Biden's poll numbers up. So they would, if there was some way that they could dig up some good thing that nobody's even thought about that.
Right. They've spent all this time lining their pockets rather than doing good.
Yeah.
Right?
And so
there's nothing they can point to. It's like, oh, well, I want to talk about Pompeo briefly because of what.
Oh, good. The butt kisser himself. Yes, please do.
Okay. So, and before we're done, I want to talk also about the allegations, the stuff coming that Grassley talked about, the oligarch having recorded insurance policy recordings of both Hunter and Joe. Right. I want to touch on that at the end. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Chuck Grassley. So when Tucker talked about Pompeo, that was eye-opening for me, because in watching the administration, he's one of the guys that I looked at as heroic, and I've learned my lesson with Bill Barr, right? I thought Bill Barr was a good guy, right? And I'm like, oh man. And when Tucker pointed out, when he said, because Tucker's in that group, like he is an insider, he is an elite, he acknowledges it, and like it takes one to know one, so he knows what's going on. And when he said, ask anybody in the White House who was the number one guy ready to be at Trump's feet, praising him and saying positive things about him to get into Trump's inner circle, to get into his confidence, and was actually undermining him. Right. And I'm like, oh gosh. And granted,
hubris, a fault of Trump's fault for allowing somebody to embellish him. In here we talk about modesty. You say, Will, quit being so modest. And I can't help it, because I feel like if I'm not modest, then I could tip the other way and allow hubris to take over some of my decision-making process, because we see what happened to Trump. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but that's a good point. You could say it was Trump's fault, but in a sense, it wasn't his fault. You don't know what you don't know. And when even if you're a billionaire businessman, not a politician, you may suspect how deep the corruption goes, but it's way, way deeper. And you probably, I'm certainly had no idea that your own side was going to be so crafty in undermining you. And even so, he did good. Even so, with all of the opposition, we had the strongest economy in history. And we had leftist economists going, I hate to say it, but things are better now than they've ever been. Right?
That's what they were saying. It's terrible. I hate to say that. Oh gosh. And so that just doesn't make, if you're in the media and you hate to say something when it's good, you should be fired. because
Well,
there's never any good news. We never have good news. It's always a bunch of crap. And you hear some good news. Your gas is $10 a gallon cheaper. But I hate to say that.
TDS is a sickness. I mean, it is a mass hysteria. It is a sickness. Trump deranged syndrome.
Your
And
eggs are 9 cents for a dozen. Your 401ks are way up.
okay, so Trump is indicted on federal charges. I'm like, oh, he was already indicted on another thing. I was like, no, that was just New York State charges. This is a federal.
That was
indictment.
that Jean Carroll chick. that was so
That was
stupid. Why did AOC go after her person that did the capital R word? You know what I'm talking about? She was like, I got capital R almost in New York, and that law was created to go after somebody and had a year to go in it. And did AOC take advantage of that law? No. The only person that took advantage of it was the person that they made the law for. For Eugene Carroll.
So he's got her. He's got the Stormy Daniel thing, or the paying off the use of campaign finances or whatever, that one. And now we have this, the documents, like the classified documents, the federal charges, and his popularity goes up, which means the opposition is shrinking, right? It's like the opposition gets louder and louder and smaller, right? It's like and so timing of the revelations of this Burisma oligarch.
Yes, yeah.
It just the timing of those things happening. Like again, we tend to be conspiratorial as humans. We put things together and we try to extrapolate, and like these things happening, it seems like it was coordinated, blah blah blah. And sometimes it is coordinated, and sometimes it isn't. And even when it isn't coordinated by humans, I really believe God is coordinating it, like the timing of it. If it's not coordinated by humans, if indicting Trump on these federal charges the same day as these revelations are coming, right? Even if that wasn't orchestrated by these, this judge, and if they didn't know these things were happening, they just happened. I think God does it intentionally so that we are in this juxtaposition, this contrast. And it's like, to indict a president for something all presidents do, and to ignore something that no president is ever supposed to do. I'm forever now going to call him Quid Pro Joe, right? Quid Pro Joe. We have him on camera admitting to something that Trump was impeached for, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not giving you this money unless you do this. That's quid pro quo.
17 recordings, 15 amongst Hunter.
Yep.
And 2 with the actual prime minister recorded.
Yeah, the prime minister. The big guy. The big guy. Like, it's confirmed. And so it's nice. And again, as frustrated as we all were in the midterms that it wasn't a red wave like we expected. But the important thing happening is the House of Representatives came into the right hands. We wouldn't be getting these revelations. We wouldn't be getting Chuck Grassley going, oh, I've got this information. Here's a document that the FBI has already confirmed is true, that there was $5 million that this president and his family got. And now I have... You just think about the bumbling Biden, right? The people that use that phrase, bumbling Biden. It's really like Keystone cops just fumbling along, going in, and it's like, I'm going to get rich, and nobody's ever going to know about this because we're going to stay in power. We're going to orchestrate Hillary Clinton is going to become president, and nobody will ever know about this, right? Mm-hmm. It'll be covered. I'm in the Obama administration, and Hillary's going to inherit everything that we do, and all this corruption that I'm doing will never be exposed. Meanwhile, the international powers that he's dealing with are making recordings just in case, and keeping them and holding them until, because the other countries that are arguably enemies, that other countries, they're not our enemies, they're not our friends, they are independent nations. And if they want to undermine what's going on in the United States, it doesn't matter if there's a Democrat or Republican in power. They're like, I can throw the United States into a total tailspin if I record this corrupt Democrat who becomes president. Suddenly his recordings are way more valuable, right? So the legitimacy of them it's like it's not. Obviously, the Dems. I got to give you a couple minutes to talk here, but
Oh, you're fine.
the Dems will say, "Oh, we don't know the validity of these. These could be AI produced, right? These could be created, fabricated. It could be deep fakes, et cetera, et cetera." It's like, no, the FBI knows what exists, and they conceal it until they can't, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, we've seen that with any X-Files episode we watched. Whenever Mulder would go in there and be like, "Skinner, I got all this stuff," he's like, "Yeah, just keep listening to the tapes." There, it's like all they're doing is just building this huge bank of stuff that they can use against another politician, because we can see that it's completely been weaponized. It's just, and so what gets me is like, what was Hunter so involved with that 15 of those calls went to him? Could you imagine that? Putting that much trust into your son, who's the smartest guy you know. And another thing, whenever you see news reporters at the White House or see Biden out, and they'll ask him a question about something that happened, like, "Hey, what about the documents you had from your vice presidency?" and gives him the blank stare and walks off, and in the news article says, "Look at the blank stare that Biden gave." Is that because he's not wanting to talk about it, or he just doesn't remember? That's the thing about it. Does he not remember? Because, I mean, that could be a legitimate thing, like, I don't remember none of that, in technicality, and see what a strategic guy to put in this position, because everything and anything he's done at this point, whenever the thing goes down, they say, "Well, he did have dementia, and we can't blame him for that." Guys, don't be so mad at him. And it's like, but who do we get mad at then? Do we get mad at Jill, or do we? I mean,
I know one of the thoughts. I think one of the thoughts that goes through his head, like legitimately, probably every time he's asked something, he of that nature, like challenging him. Okay, yeah, that I'm sure. But one of the thoughts that goes through his head is, how did they get past our security? Right? How did they get past the apparatus? Like, we're supposed to be able to prevent those questions from ever being asked. We're in control. How could that have been asked? And he's probably got this deep rage that slipped through somehow, that he's not really in control. Here's the thing: they're godless, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do not believe in God. They think they are gods. They think that man is the highest, intelligence that exists, and and by being in that position of power, the leader of the greatest nation, right, the most powerful nation, or formerly the most powerful nation, being the executive in charge, thinks that he's in absolute control of everything. And so when a question from some peon little reporter on the White House lawn sneaks through, it cracks that. It doesn't bounce off. It makes a crack in that belief, and they try and patch it over, but it's crumbling. It's crumbling for all of us to see.
Yeah. 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 I see that. Jacqueline Edwards. Yeah, he's talking about the one that he won't even acknowledge. And
yeah, Biden says he says he has Joe says he has 5 grandchildren. He actually has 6. It's like,
yeah,
man, it's like crazy.
Yeah. And so did you see the footage of the man whenever the arraignment took place? I can't see how long we've been on, so you've got to keep it on the time, Michael, because I can't
1 minute.
see. We have
1 minute.
Okay. Oh, well, good gracious, it's been a lot of fun. But there was a video of a man who was out there jumping in front of the motorcade, and he was causing a bunch of havoc. Did you see where he got arrested?
I heard about it. I didn't see any footage. I just read a headline and then had to
check out my channel. William Archibald did a video on it. And you can see it firsthand.
Well, when did you post it? Yesterday? This morning or yesterday?
It was yesterday. Yeah,
right.
It did. I was like, man, I wonder how I can get by with this, because it's kind of like one of those touchy subjects. But I did, and so far we're good to go. But man, I wait to see that mark when I will go into my thing, like, oh, got one of those again.
Well, yeah.
I know. They said you could talk about something, and then you did, and then they were like, no, you can't. I seen that. I was like, oh,
YouTube, you liars, you
got me.
So next Wednesday, Sweet Home Maricopa will be back up and running, and I'm going to announce it here for the first time. I'm not sure the date yet, but we're launching a store. We're going to sell some T-shirts and some swag. So we're launching a store.
And it gets our own line. We got to start doing some supplements so we get this public healthy, so we can fight this information war. We need good keyboard hands, everybody.
All right. Now,
So, yeah.
even though Carrie Jumper in the comments said, just keep going, we're out of time. Sorry.
Yeah, we got to roll out. Well, we're going to pray for Trump. Everything that's been done to him is wrong. He's my guy. We're going to keep pulling for him because he's the only one that can do this. So thank you, Michael, for having me. I appreciate it.
And I love you guys all in the comment section. Good to see you, William. And we'll do this again about a month from now. We'll be back on with you. All right. Love you. Bye.